But on our 10th trip to the county permit and development department in Joshua Tree, a fellow walked over to me with a piece of paper in his hand and he said, "Is this your grandpa?" And I said, "Oh my God, what is that?" And it was the original homestead document from the federal government giving him that property.
Hi, and welcome to the Desert Lady Diaries podcast, a weekly conversation with women who found their home in the Mojave Desert. I'm Dawn Davis, and this is episode 95. I've recently heard from a few of you that you don't always listen all the way to the end of the podcast, and I would encourage you to do so, as sometimes, like today, there's a little gift from our guest, or I may let you know about something special happening with the podcast or in the community, or just be asking for your feedback, and you may even hear your name. You never know. If you'd like more information about the podcast, it's all at the website, desertladydiaries.com, and I invite you to engage with the guests, with other listeners, or me on social media, on Facebook and Instagram at Desert Lady Diaries, or on Twitter at Desert Lady Diary. Lisa Rae Black is a published songwriter and co-founder of the bands Hammer of the Oz and the LPs. She lives an amazing life with her boyfriend and bandmate Paul Forrester in Morongo Valley in a cabin built by her grandfather in 1951 on a 5-acre homestead parcel he acquired in 1931. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
As I always ask, the first question is, what was your first experience with desert?
Born and raised in West Covina, California, my mother had inherited this 5-acre parcel in Morongo Valley that I live on currently. Mm-hmm. So as a young girl, we would travel out here from there. And in the back of my dad's, I'm 5 years old at this time, in the back of my dad's 280Z.
Oh my gosh.
He had
That's a small car.
And let me tell you, I loved every second of it. It's odd because now I'm claustrophobic, but I think back to that and I was tiny. My mom did not appreciate the desert. But I remember jumping out of the back of that car and just feeling like I landed on Mars. And this part of Morongo Valley is beautiful and it's pretty remote. It's dirt road and it's a zoned rural living, so I was running around looking at the bunnies and the stunning view of Mount Jacinto and just kind of looking at that mountain. And I really did feel like I was on another planet.
Yeah, it does that. Especially I feel like at night, like when it's a full moon and you're out in the desert at night, it just does, it feels like you are on the moon, not just that it's shining above you. So awesome. It's a really cool feeling. Yeah. So let's fast forward to from 5 years old, coming to your grandfather's property and visiting, to actually deciding, I'm going to move to that 5-acre parcel.
Well, quite a bit of time passed between 5 and 55. How old was I? I moved here 2 years ago. And so that was about 50 years of a variance there, but never thought in a million years that I would live here. My brother, Jim Black, who lived on the property for 32 years, but fortunately inherited it after he passed away 2 years ago. So
I'm sorry.
At the young age of 62, yeah. But he loved the desert. He loved the desert lifestyle. He made it enticing for me. And he was well aware of the artistry up here and embraced his little sister's rock and roll prowess. He was a big supporter of his little sis. So I moved up here 2 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
And was it just the two of you, older brother, younger sister? Or were there other siblings? Okay.
No, there's two others. There's my family's great. I don't have the tension that some people have.
That's nice.
Conflict, if you will. But yeah, I have an older sister. She's 11 years older than me, and she actually made it possible for me to gain the property through inheritorship or whatever, because it did pass down through that homestead. I actually got the original document from the county that was granted to my grandfather, Orville Creed.
Wow.
Yeah, when Paul Forrester, my boyfriend, and I moved up here, we had to get a permit or two, and it wasn't fun. But on our 10th trip to the county permit and development department in Joshua Tree, a fellow walked over to me with a piece of paper in his hand, and he said, "Is this your grandpa?" And I said, "Oh my God, what is that?" And it was the original homestead document from the federal government giving him that property.
Was he in one of the world wars? as a veteran, or did he just come out and say, I'm just going to homestead and stake my claim? And I understand the process was that you'd have to live on it for a certain amount of time, and then you would have to get neighbors to verify, yes, in fact, they are living there, and then they would grant it to you. And in some cases, it was, I think, veterans that were coming out, not only for healing mustard gas poisoning that they had gotten in the war, but it was just part of almost like I don't want to call it a GI Bill, but, it was a perk, I guess, of having served.
Oh my gosh, I just got an education from you. I don't believe that my grandfather was in the military.
Okay.
He may have just been proactively taking advantage of a good thing. And in 1931, they granted him the land for, quote, infinity and to whoever he chooses for the rest of time.
That's
It actually
cool.
says that on there.
That's so cool.
It's a very oddly written statement, but it's really cool. I felt very empowered when I saw it. I was like, oh my God, this is great. In 1951, they did say, in order for you to keep it, you have to build a structure on it.
Okay.
Of yay size, and it was about 350 square feet, I think. And they did have several designs that they offered to people. But my grandfather, he worked for a California Supreme Court judge as a handyman. So he built it himself. Yeah. And it is a postmodern design. It has a slanted roof, and it's a box on a foundation. And so... But it's his handiwork. When we renovated it, Paul took off a vent on the roof, and he said, "Who is this?" And it was Orville Creed. My grandpa signed the vent on the roof.
Oh my gosh.
And I couldn't even believe it. I was like, why would he do that? And then we thought maybe when he bought it, it might have been set aside for him or something. But it was his handwriting.
Oh, wow. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Or maybe he just thought, someday I'm going to leave my mark. And someday someone's going to find it, and maybe they'll investigate.
Isn't that awesome?
That is so cool.
I did feel that way, too. I was
yeah.
like, wow.
So, of course, do you have that displayed somewhere in the house?
It's on the roof of my house.
It is still, okay.
It's an original part. And so, yes, his legacy lives on the roof of my cabin.
That's amazing.
It is.
How much fun. Oh, my gosh. So is it the house, and now do you have other structures there, or is it just the house for you guys at this point?
Well, Paul Forster and I moved here from Los Angeles, and he lived in a 3,500 square foot house in Torrance, and I lived in a 2,000 square foot house in Van Nuys. So we went from 7,000 square feet
Oh my gosh.
to 320 square feet of living space. We bought a 40-foot RV. And we just finished our bathroom, 10 by 11 square foot bathroom, which is adjacent to the house.
Okay.
And there's a well on the property.
Oh, nice.
So we have beautiful, clean water.
Yeah. I think a lot of people don't realize that when some folks do come out here and purchase or inherit, whichever way it goes, one of these homestead cabins, that's kind of the practice, is to get one of these like campers or an RV and park it on the property, and you're kind of living in that while you're doing your renovations, which is something I don't know that a lot of people know that is done here.
I thought it dawned on me one day while I was out here in the beginning when we were renovating. We had no electricity. My vocabulary was changing dramatically with terms like trailer park and RV and things like that.
Right. Yeah.
You don't really think about it much. Yeah, in the beginning I lived in a trailer park for 1 year while we were getting the power turned on.
Right.
That was really actually very difficult because Southern California Edison is who manipulates, if you will, the power up here.
Right.
And I say that term because they charged me an arm and a leg to put a pole back on my property, which was ironic because my grandfather actually paid for. My grandfather, when he moved there, he and his friend got 55 acres there, and they had homesteaded several. So they were the ones who put the poles in. My grandfather and his buddies. But these guys didn't care about that. So they charged me an arm and a leg. But it was well worth it because living there proved to be a great decision for me. And Paul loves it.
Well, that's great. So how was that decision made, you guys? Did you come out? I mean, you said your brother was at the property. So did you guys come out and visit him at certain times? And did you kind of start liking coming out to the desert? Or what was the situation?
I had ended a 20-year marriage to a woman, and it was very difficult, and Paul was going through a similar situation. He too was married to a woman, and we met in our 50s, and kind of it's an interesting situation. It's a good
Yeah.
thing. We both had it with the city. It's a common theme you hear now.
Yeah.
We didn't move here thinking let's go there and be artists or any of that stuff. We moved here somewhat out of necessity. I do own the property, and back there we had a couple mortgages, and that was really stressful. And so I figured, I'm not really killing it in the corporate capitalism department these days. I spend most of my time geeking out on songwriting and doing things that satisfy my
Your soul.
my soul,
Yeah.
and my brain, and so it made sense financially. And although it was quite a bit more expensive than I even imagined, just to renovate,
Just to get the power.
just get the power.
Yeah.
The survey, I had to have the property surveyed because we didn't have an official address. My property was a township and range type description on paper with the county.
Right.
So it was a very long description, and though Grandpa had called it Mockingbird Lane and Bird of Paradise, those were the two roads so that I was used to them being called, but they now are called something different.
Oh.
Per the county, they our mailman is so great. He comes by the house and calls me when we get mail.
Oh, wow.
And he'll be like, "Hey," because
Right.
my brother was very loved in that region.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
so nice.
My brother was unsighted most of his life, although when he moved there he could see, but he lost his sight completely. So
Oh, my goodness.
he lived there for about 15 years with no water. Always had power though, because Grandpa put those poles in.
Right.
It was like literally like a light bulb on the porch.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, and my brother loved living there. So at any rate, now there's like cars on the road. It's
Right.
weird. It's like, wow.
Yeah, we've suddenly become a popular place to be.
Very, very popular.
Yeah.
As I drove here just now up the 62, I followed a house that was separated in 3 sections on oversized load up the grade.
Oh, my gosh.
And I was laughing because I knew when we moved up here 2 years ago it was going to be painful in that way.
Yeah.
Watching that little rural environment
Right.
morph into what it's going to be here in about 5 years. But nonetheless, I have history here, and I love it being here,
Right.
and I'm grateful to be here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're an excellent musician, because I've seen you play in person, so I can say that. And you've been in a number of bands, whether they've been in LA. How did that all start? Like, I'm going to take up the guitar.
Well, it was an easy one because when I was about 4, my brother got a Snoopy guitar for Christmas, and it had a little crank on it and a string. That was the strap, and I just said mine, and I took it, and I would just crank that little thing, and music would come out.
Oh, my
and
gosh.
it was on. I'd found it. And I was like, whoa. So time went by, and when I was about 12, I told my parents I'm going to take guitar lessons, and they were like, "What?" Well, I started with trumpet.
Yeah.
That made them very unhappy.
Especially the practicing.
Wow, because they needed one of those in the band in junior high. So I was like, all right, I'll do that.
I was the one of the many flutes.
Oh, you were?
Yes.
Okay. So you're the woodwind.
Right.
I get
Yes,
it.
exactly. Do you still play the trumpet?
I do not, but I.
But you could pick it up and play it if you had to, I'm guessing.
Well, yeah, it's actually, you know what, trumpet is something, because your lips and it hurts, but
yeah.
there's nothing like the sound of a muted trumpet, in my opinion.
Right. I still have my flute. It's right
Do
over there.
you?
Yeah, it's right over there.
Nice.
Take it out and play it every once
I've
in a while.
never even tried.
Yeah.
It looks complicated.
Well, I had an experience when I was in jazz band in high school where I was playing the flute, I was playing the piccolo, and then suddenly the band director came to me and said, we need somebody to play trombone in the jazz band, and I think you should do it. And I was like, what? And then, so I bring the trombone, I'm playing. The trick that I learned, though, was that I could write the position numbers over the notes.
Okay.
So I didn't have to learn the bass clef, because to my chagrin now in taking some piano lessons, that's been my most difficult learning, because the right hand's fine because that's playing, the top staff and that's on the treble clef, but on the left hand, that's the bass side, and I'm like, I don't even know what I'm doing. So I'm trying very hard to work to put them together.
Good for you.
Yeah, but it's not easy. So
it's
then,
not easy till one day, all of a sudden, it's easy.
right, exactly, and that's why you practice, right? It's like driving a car. The first time you get in it, you're like really hypersensitive about what's around you and how fast you're going and everything, and then
Yeah.
fast
It's
forward
scary.
2 years later, and you're like in the car and out the door, and you don't even really think about what you're doing.
That's
Yeah.
exactly what it's like. The human brain is amazing. It's,
So 12 years old, so you take
12
the
years old,
guitar
yes.
lessons,
I did.
and where do we go from there?
well, I had the good fortune of signing up for guitar lessons at Hannock's Music in West Covina with a fella named Ate Rojas, who was an exceptional flamenco guitarist and schooled and all that. So he got me with blank slate and nothing but ambition, and he taught me how to read music from the Frederick Notebook and taught me how to sit properly as a classical guitarist. So I instantly learned not just how to manipulate that thing, but how to maximize the fretboard
Yeah.
physically and stuff. And so it's why I'm so speedy today on the fretboard.
You are.
It's a matter of physics, like how you hold your finger and getting all that stuff. That's how I started playing, and I put it down because it really wasn't working very well for me. And I put it down for a summer, and then and I was getting all these great records for Christmas and these LP records, and I picked it up again. All of a sudden, it was there. It was very odd. Everything he had taught me kind of became like this visual in front of my face. And it dawned on me because he trying to tell me about these notes, and I'm like, who cares? But he did have me remember the notes.
Yeah.
There's only so many of them. And then I looked at that fretboard like a year later, and I thought, well, every note that's on this fretboard has the ability to produce any song I've ever heard. I had that moment that and I thought, well, fuck, if it's in there, I'm getting it out of there. And so I've been
It doesn't have a crank. This one doesn't have a crank. I am the crank.
Now I'm the crank. So it just clicked in my brain. And then I was off to the races, and I joined I learned a minor pentatonic scale, and I started playing Chuck Berry licks, and to Ate's dismay. I'll never forget the day I came in and did a Chuck Berry lick, and he went, "Don't do that." And I was gone. It was like, thanks. Goodbye.
Oh my gosh.
Such a great teacher.
Well, and that's important, I think, when you have a really good teacher that can teach you those things, like the classical things. It's like writing, learn the rules and then you can break them, sort of thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he had me grinding those scales away. And but the most important thing he did, by far, was he had me playing with a metronome from day one.
Nice.
So I was a drummer before I was a guitar player.
Yeah, exactly. You got to keep that beat going.
Clapping my hands. We'd spend weeks just clapping.
Oh, wow.
To the metronome. And I thought, what are you doing with me? And then
I'm here to learn the guitar.
I'm here to be a rock star, dude. You're bumming me out. But man, I'll tell you today, I'm so grateful for that, because it's the one thing I think it's the key foundation. You're only as good as your drummer, Miles Davis.
Yeah. So, you were in a number of bands in LA. I wrote them down somewhere. Hell's Bells.
Hell's Bells, yeah, that one wasn't that long ago.
Oh, okay.
Growing up in Covina, not West Covina, rather Covina, which was a very small town, my high school had a total of 300 students in a public school.
Wow.
80 of which were in my graduating class. And one of my neighbors was my ride to school. He was the drummer in the marching band, and he was later. So I hung out with him because I liked that sound a lot. The marching bands made me very happy.
I was in marching band with my
you?
flute and piccolo. Yes.
See? Wasn't that the greatest?
And then I was the drum major.
How fun.
My senior year.
Did it make you did it just take you away? I mean, the sound.
It was a lot of fun. I mean, just watching the whole process put together of, you're learning the music, and then you have to get out on the field and actually make pictures with your bodies on the field is so interesting. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
See, that's a whole different thing right there. So this fella is in a band at my school. He's in a surf band, and he's my ride to school. And then he has his friend is in the stoner band in my school, and they'd play at the Quad. They ended up joining forces and starting this band called Motley Crue. And so,
wait a minute, what?
So they were, yeah.
I can't tell you. That was the music of my youth.
Yeah.
Motley Crue,
we're
Judas.
the same year, me and you.
Right, exactly.
You're a couple
Ozzy.
months- Yeah.
Yeah.
So at this point in time, I'm 16 years old, and I got a little bit of guitar under my belt. See, I kind of have a little bit to be dangerous, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's my ride to school. I'm besties with his little sister, and we're hanging out, and he's he's geeking out in his surf band. And the other guy, and then they start rehearsing just right around the corner from my house in San Dimas. So they're rehearsing there, and I'm riding my bike. They hadn't played a gig yet, and I went to a rehearsal by myself on my bike. This fella, Mick Mars, was the guitar player, or is, and he was quite a bit older though. So at this time, I'm 16, Tommy's 17, Mick Mars is 42 years old.
Okay.
So he'd been around, and but I'm looking at him playing his guitar through that big box, right? And I'm like, boy, I want to get my hands on that thing.
Yeah.
So they break or whatever, and I go to him and I go, can I try your guitar? And I thought for sure he was going to say, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
He puts it around my neck. He tells me how to play it, how to maneuver it.
Wow.
He goes, whatever you do, don't turn the volume up without having a chord being played or music or something, because you're going to fuck with my ears if you do. So I do it, and I just couldn't even believe it. I was like, oh my God. Well, that day, the girls in the Pandoras were rehearsing for some reason in San Dimas. Their singer had just quit the Pandoras, and they had gigs booked, singer, guitar player. They had gigs booked with Agent Orange and Social Distortion, and they said, you've got to be our guitar player. And I said, I don't even know how to do this. They go, no. We just saw you do that. Because I did a Chuck Berry riff.
Oh, okay, yeah,
right? So that now I'm in this band. I go home on my bike. I'm all, Dad, I'm in a band. And he was like, oh, God. But
oh my
bless their heart, they
gosh.
drove me to Beverly Hills. And I rehearsed with the Pandoras.
Oh my
and
gosh.
we did a gig. And the first gig we ever did, we got a record deal with Enigma
Jesus.
Records.
Talk about stepping in
And
shit. You just did it, man.
It was way.
Oh my gosh.
It was great.
What a
It was-
ride.
It was too fast, too soon. I didn't know what I was doing. And we did do a little 5-song EP with Chaz Ramirez. And I ended up working at that studio, recording Social Distortion in Berlin. And now I'm like a whopping 18 years old. And
Right.
so.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
And one band just kind of rolled into the next.
Yeah, exactly. So now up here,
Yeah.
I read the little story about how you and Paul were up at Pappy's, and security guy Dave gets on the mic with the Sunday band and starts belting out some music, and you're like, oh my gosh, we need to make a band with him.
How funny is that? Now, mind you, I'm 55 years old, okay? So when I came up here 2 years ago, I figured, well, thank God that's behind me. I mean, in the interim, too, I've worked with some really great group, and Pat D'Annunzio. I've worked with Madonna.
Oh, wow.
I've worked with hugely successful people. But it never really manifested for me, whatever. So I kind of put it down. Psychologically, I'm moving to the desert. I'm not going to know anybody here. I have no idea that there's artists up here. Just Jimmy told me people paint up here or whatever. We're like, what are we going to do up here? Well, everybody talks about Pappy and Harriet's. I'm like, what is that? So we go there. I'm like, okay. It reminds me of Knott's Berry Farm. It's kind of fun.
I've never been to Knott's Berry Farm, so
You
that's
know.
actually kind of funny.
Well, when I was a kid,
Okay.
they actually used to serve boysenberry pie.
Oh my
Seriously.
gosh. Somebody told me recently,
Knott's
they're like,
Berry
you've never
Farm.
been there? We need to go.
Yeah.
So I'm sure I'll be there soon.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It was a staple back in the time. So we go to Pappy and Harriet's. It was a Sunday, right? And then this band gets up there, and they're good. They're good. They're good. They're kind of mellow. They're really they're just playing. And then they're like, now we're going to bring our security guy up here. This big guy gets up there, says security on his shirt, and he starts singing Immigrant Song, and I just went, what? Wait a minute.
Where am I? What's happening?
I'm like, yeah, okay. You might want to rethink your lineup. But, so then afterwards, I just, because I was in a Black Sabbath band in Torrance, that I started called Sabbath of Black for fun. It's really hard to put the guitar down for me. I looked up, I was like looking straight up in the air. I said, do you know any Black Sabbath songs? And he starts singing War Pigs. And Paul and I just look at each other and we go, oh, this is going to be awesome.
This is on. Yeah.
This guy is so cool, this Dave Johnson.
Yeah.
He literally says, he doesn't even know me. He says, be at my house tomorrow at noon. I'll get the pizza. And I was like, okay. And we showed up and we just wrote a song list of Black Sabbath songs.
Wow. And here you are. How many gigs have you guys done now?
I don't know.
You've
Maybe
done it.
8.
Yeah, and the music video, which I happened to be at Palms the day you guys brought the sheep up, and
You were there?
I was with Sandra. Sandra said
Oh,
she was
okay.
coming up later, and I had been up there helping out in the morning at breakfast. She's
Love
like, just
her.
hang out. So we hung out and then watched,
Such a great
Yeah.
person.
Yeah,
okay.
she's awesome.
Yeah, you guys are. I've been so blessed up here. I've met people up here that have been so great for my soul because coming from LA, I mean, it's a dark situation.
Well, and it's really hard. I mean, I was there for 7 years myself before coming out here, and it's just super hustle to keep things going. You really have to, if you're not there with some money, you're not having the best time. I'm just going to say it. Yeah, it's rough.
Yeah, it's a heartbreaker. I mean, I was there in the 80s in a band I had started with Tommy Rae Brown, who later married James Brown and has a son, James Brown Jr. She lives in London now, but she and I in 86 started a band called Hardly Dangerous. We were there at the right time, if you will. Right place, right time. If what you're looking for is a 3.5-year continuous 24-hour party.
Right.
I went with Tommy Lee's mother to his first show at the Starwood because she's from Greece, and she said, we have to have people in the fucking crowd. You gotta get in the car. We gotta pack it. We're gonna pack it for him. And so, okay. And I don't even know if my parents knew where I was. I went there and it just, I walked in the Starwood, 16 years old, and I smelled that smell. And I thought, wow, this is awesome. I mean,
Is it still open, the Starwood?
No.
What is it? Where was it?
It's a dry cleaners now.
Oh, wow.
In West Hollywood.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The Starwood was an important place from which a lot of successful LA bands sprung from. I mean, a lot. The list is long and amazing. And
wow.
The owner was, drug dealer, mafia guy, and he eventually went down, so the place went away. But I think Motley Crue played 2 nights there or something. And ironically, Paul Forster, my boyfriend, was there too. And
oh my God. It's funny you should say that because I feel like I'm like 6 degrees of separation right now because of the number of, the Motley Crue shows that I would go to on the East Coast.
Okay.
And I didn't really know, obviously, the drummer, but now here I am sitting with someone who knew him very well. That's just a really interesting kind of cosmic thing.
Yes. I did watch the Netflix movie. So that was kind of, it was like a cartoon of the reality of it.
Sure.
It was somewhat appropriate, But so yeah, that's interesting. It was that was the beginning of what was like in the 60s the Sunset Strip was raging with the Beach Boys and Charles Manson, literally Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, those guys, rocking. The Doors.
Yeah.
So it had happened before, and but I'm afraid it may not happen again there because things are in the works to kind of just wipe it out. So it's more important than ever, I suppose.
So, do you think that coming here to the desert now, this will be where you stay?
Well, that's a good question. It's where I'm going to stay tonight. And I'll be here tomorrow. I would like to think so, but in all earnestness, if I do make it to the ripe old age of 80 or something, it's not the most optimum situation. I live on an alluvial fan, if you will. It's a dirt slope. That's been graded for the cabin and then graded we have horse stables. My brother had 3 thoroughbred horses on the property. But, it's been an accommodation in that sense. A lot of Joshua Tree and landers are flat. The topography.
Right, yeah.
I'm in a canyon, which renders my view to be spectacular.
Yeah.
I have a 360-degree mountainous view with layers of mountains to my, if I'm looking south to my east. And then in my west, I see Big Bear.
Nice.
Which still has snow.
Are you on which side of the highway are you on? Like if I'm going down to Palm Springs, are you on the right side or the left side?
I'm on the right side.
You're on the right side. Okay, yeah. I go to a seamstress over there on the right side, and whenever I drive up to her place, the view is like amazing.
Yeah.
I can't believe it.
It's
Yeah, and it's
spectacular.
quiet,
It is quiet.
which is amazing too.
It's
I
very
just
quiet.
enjoy it. Yeah.
Except for those quail, man, I'll tell you. I gotta say, keep it down.
I know.
Because, there's so many. It's the joy of. I just will
Right.
literally sit there, my heart will flutter. I will watch these creatures.
Yeah.
Right now they have all their babies that are like cotton balls with legs.
Yeah, I was sitting out front eating a little popsicle after dinner one night, and I mean, for being in downtown Joshua Tree, I get quite a bit of wildlife here. And I was sitting one night, it was about 7:45, and all of a sudden, I'm telling you, there had to be 36 babies with these other, adults, like shepherding them along, and I was shocked that there were that many, but it was amazing to watch. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Good.
Yeah, it is.
It is good. Yeah.
Believe it or not, 30 minutes is up.
Okay, perfect.
Which I can't believe. It's just been so much fun talking to you. But what I'm going to do before we go is
No problem.
I'm going to ask you to select 4 numbers between 1 and 50, and these answers that you give to these questions will be for my Patreon supporters, which are so generous to do that for me. So your 4 numbers.
Okay,
Please.
let's start with 50
Okay.
and 49, 1 and 2.
1 and 2. Okay. I'm going to read the questions.
Okay.
And then we'll come back and get your answers. What was the first paying job you ever had, and where was it? Finish this sentence. I've always wanted. And you find a lottery ticket that ends up winning $10 million. What would you do? And the last question will be, what do you think about when you're alone in your car? So if you would like to hear Lisa's answers to those questions, I would love it if you'd go out onto desertladydiaries.com, click on the support page, and take a look at the Patreon option. It's $5 a month. You get juicy insights into all our guests with these crazy questions that I ask them every week. Thanks again for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Dawn. Thank you.
I met Lisa through a mutual friend, Pamela Goodchild, who's also been on the podcast. So it was a lot of fun getting to know Lisa a little bit better and hearing about her life in music. I mean, what a ride. Lisa was kind enough to provide a track of a song she wrote performed by her other band with Paul Forrester called The Long Plays, or the LPs. So stay tuned to the end of the episode to hear the song. It's really beautiful. I have a number of shout-outs this week, the first one being to Brenda L. Brenda, thank you so much for becoming a Patreon supporter and for being the guest for episode number 96. I also have a shout-out to Jennifer R. of 29 Palms. Thank you so much for your generous donation, Jennifer. That actually covers a month of podcast hosting and then some, which is greatly appreciated. And to Louise from Desert Hot Springs and Phaedra from Joshua Tree for signing up for the weekly newsletter. I appreciate you both. Now you'll never miss an episode. If you're enjoying this podcast and would like to help support it like Brenda and Jennifer, it's easy to do at the website desertladydiaries.com. To make a standalone donation, just click the yellow donate button and you can use PayPal or your debit or credit card, or become a monthly Patreon supporter. For $5 a month, you'll have access to the exclusive Diary Unlocked content, which is the conversation that happens after every episode. Either way, your support helps keep the podcast ad-free and contributes to reducing the costs of the podcast hosting site, the website, and the SoundCloud membership that keeps the episodes accessible there. Any amount helps, and I am so grateful for your generosity. And now I'm going to play you out with a song written by Lisa called I Believe, performed by the LPs, and it was also recorded by Dave Ketchings at Rancho de la Luna Studio here in Joshua Tree with distinctive vocalist Victoria Williams and percussionist extraordinaire Danny Frankel. Enjoy. Thanks so much for listening.
gonna rain again. Soon there will be peace for your broken heart and painful emotions. Broken heart and painful emotions. Broken heart, painful emotions. Broken heart and painful emotions. Believe. I believe there will be peace. I believe. I believe there will be peace. That tender embrace puts a smile on my face. That moment in the morning when I'm dawned by your grace. I still can't believe it. I have to feel it to see it. A bond like no other, like a child and a mother. 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 Thank you for always being kind. In a mad, mad world gone blind. With vain people who used to shine. From sundown to sunrise, I still believe. Oh, I still believe. I still believe. I still believe. Through the darkest days of my life, you lay by my side.